it's me, and today I'm here with my December reading wrap up. Hey. Okay, so normally I take my notes for my videos like on my laptop, but I've been really busy, so I haven't been able to do that, so I'm just gonna read from my reading journal, which usually I don't do, but here we go. So for stats, the last stats of the year, or the first stats of the year technically, but you know, I read 8 books in the month of December, which amounted to 2,626 pages, and I owned 2 of the books that I read, and both of those were rereads, so I took 0 books off my physical TBR this month, which is a shame, I know. And then I'm also shopping with the TBR challenges in 2021, so this is the last time I'm going to see them. I have 1 book out of my comfort zone and 2 sequels. Didn't read a new book or TBR event because, like I said, I didn't take anything off my physical TBR. And then for star rating, I have 2 2 stars, 3 3 stars, 2 4 stars, and 1 5 stars. I read 6 books by female authors and 2 books by male authors. I read 1 middle grade book, 5 YA books, and 2 adult books. And then for the genres, I read 1 non-fiction, 2 contemporaries, 2 mysteries, 1 classic, and 2 fantasies. I tried to pay a little bit more attention to like diversifying the genres I read this month, but as I didn't read a lot this month, it was a little bit rough. I'm gonna pop up a lot of pictures because like read a lot of the books I read this month were ebooks, but then I also read 2 library books that I have had to return to the library. So yeah, only 2 out of the 8 books that I read this month I have here with me. So bear with me because it's not gonna be easy. And yeah, let's just begin with the first book I read in December, which is White Rage by Carol Anderson, which I ended up giving 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know how to talk about this book because I feel like my thoughts on it are very like circumstantial and just like based on the situation that I read this book in, which I had to read this for school, so I had to like push myself to read it while I was like a very big reading slump, and I just didn't feel like reading at all because in the beginning of the month I was in a very big reading slump. But yeah, so I feel bad because I feel like picking up this book just felt like a chore, and that like made me take away, like my enjoyment feels wrong because of the subject matter, but it just, I don't know, it took away from my reading experience with this book. And it's purely circumstantial, and I recognize that, so, and I feel bad saying anything about this book. But it is a great non-fiction book about racism in America, basically. But what I thought was interesting is kind of, I feel like most of the non-fiction books that I've read is from like the black perspective, like a black person talking about like their experience with racism and then like explaining it historically. But this book was from the perspective of a white person. That doesn't make sense the way I say it, but it's kind of, it goes through all these injustices that have happened over the years, and it kind of explains how black people are like fighting for freedom and like how white people reacted to that, and how basically, yeah, that's what I mean. It's also called White Rage because it's about like the anger white people had over black people gaining rights. So and I think that was like an interesting perspective to like widen, because I don't know, I feel like it's just, it makes me more angry like knowing the thought process by like the people who did all these things rather than like getting the experience of the people experiencing the things, because I'm like, you're so stupid. that's basic. Because like the stupidity and all of these people over generations and generations and generations of people. I also just learned a whole lot, and I'm glad I read this, and I just wish I had read this under different circumstances because it is a really good book that I highly recommend. I haven't filmed in a while. Ooh, we're gonna have to pre-film a couple of videos today. Then the next book I read is This Tiny Pretty Things by Sona Charaipotra Dhonielle Clayton. This is the first book in the Tiny Pretty Things series, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I got the duology from the library to read before the show came out. I didn't manage to read it before it came out, but I did read both in December, so watch out for that. But this duology takes place on a ballet school, and basically we got like a little prologue in the beginning in which we see a girl who is kind of like ahead of her years, like more talented than most people in her years, so she's able to like join the later years in their production and has like more difficult parts and everything. And we know something happens, accident happens, or it's claimed to be an accident, and she's like very wounded and in the hospital still recovering. And then it's kind of like this drama like that of like was it done on purpose, who did what exactly, and like all like the hate she received out of jealousy. And then we follow two main characters. We follow Beth, who used to be really close friends with that girl, but a lot of people think that she had something to do with her accident, as well as she's just like, now that that person is gone, she is like the best of the school. Her sister is this really famous ballet dancer who also came from the school, so there's a lot of pressure on her to be perfect. And then we follow Gigi, who's new to the school. She is black. She's one of the only black students in the school. I think she and like someone else, like literally like two black students. So she feels kind of like an outsider, not just because of her skin color, but also because she came from this ballet school in California, which was like way looser than this school, which is very strict. And like the students used to be in her other school was like way closer in here. So she feels a bit like an outsider, even with just like attitude. And she ends up getting like the big role in the performance they're doing, so she's becoming a new target. And then we also follow June, who is the roommate to Gigi, and June is Asian American, and her mom is kind of against her doing ballet and wants her to go like to a regular school. So she's kind of given the assignment, I guess, the deadline by her mother, that if she doesn't get like a big part by the end of the school year, like she has to drop out and go to a regular school. So a lot of drama. Also just wanna, normally I give like content warnings in the description because I know not everyone wants them, but I just want to heavily emphasize this book. Like, don't read this if you have any troubles with like eating disorders or anything, because we have a main character and a side character who have an eating disorder, but just besides that, like weight and food get talked about a lot in this book, even when it doesn't come to the characters with eating disorders. And it even got to me a little bit. It kind of impacted me even a little bit, and I don't struggle with anything eating disorder related at all. So I can't even imagine what it would be like for someone with like a struggling eating disorder to read this, because just don't. Actually, about my thoughts on the book, I really enjoyed this book. I really liked just like very high drama books. That's what I love. And this delivered. It definitely delivered. I really liked the main characters. The only character I don't like is Beth, but I feel like, because she's just like terrible and very toxic and manipulative, and it's like terrible, but I feel like the narrative, the plot, the way it was written, kind of tries to excuse her behavior, but it just be like, oh, look at how terrible of a home life she's having. Like, look at all the pressure it's put on her because of her sister. Like, of course she acts out. I'm like, yeah, okay, she can act out, but I'll be like a toxic ass person being low-key racist and using sexuality as a weapon. You can do you don't have to do all of those things. You know, but she did, and I just feel like we were meant to like sympathize with her, and I couldn't. I hated her guts because she was a terrible human being. But otherwise, I really like Gigi and June. Gigi definitely, you can tell that she comes from like a different background than the other character, because like, the other characters have like lived in the school like almost their whole lives. Like have gone to like this like ballet school for like a big chunk of their lives, while she grew up like going to like a looser one that's more based on like having fun while also like teaching the dance and stuff. And the difference of attitude is just so nice to have that between all the drama and stuff. It keeps things like light and refreshed, and I like that. And then June was a very interesting character to follow, and I really liked her storyline. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun reading this. It was so high drama. But I do think like it was all, I could understand everyone's actions, if that makes sense. Even if it's like, okay, that's far, but like I can like see where they're going, which is important. We'll talk about that later. I also liked that this one had a little bit of a mystery element to it, and I like that as well. And then the next book I read is Influence by Sara Shepard and Lilia Buckingham, which is a guy I got through NetGalley, and I gave 2 out of 5 stars to. I didn't like this at all. I was expecting to go into this to like it because it seemed, okay, Sara Shepard, which is the author of Pretty Little Liars, it's not the best book she writes, but like very high drama. It's so well done. Oh, so I requested this hoping that it would be fun, but it's not good. The drama just like isn't, like all the drama is like basically around relationships mostly, and the relationships were so poorly developed. Oh. There's literally just like, you had like one conversation and you're already desperately in love with them. Like, no. The woman is just like so insta-lovey, and then there's one relationship in here that was already established before the book, just like, so poorly developed, and a lot of like, especially like towards the end, a lot of like the drama hinges on that relationship, and I'm just like, not it. So that's not it. It's just no. And then also just like the writing wasn't great. The mystery was terrible. I'm sorry, but if at the end of your mystery, like when it's revealed, I'm like, yeah, no breadcrumbs at all in the rest of the book. No one saw this coming because you literally couldn't see it coming. Like that's not a good mystery. I'm sorry. And also, just Lilia Buckingham is an influencer. I know this because the book tells me, because it has a like introduction by her in which she explains like her influencer journey, and then in the acknowledgement they say it again. And I'm like, how? Because there's so many mistakes around social media that are in this book. First of all, they call the founder of YouTube a woman, which isn't true. The current CEO of YouTube is a woman, but the founders are 3 men. So a quick Google search would have fixed that for you. They use Musical.ly and TikTok as 2 separate things, which I don't know if you know this, but they're the same thing, just rebranded. And I can kind of understand where they were coming from if they would be like, oh, this person got famous off Musical.ly, and now like doesn't do TikTok or anything, but like that's how they got famous. But that's not how they use it. They use it like they're 2 separate things. They're not. And also they use livestream and YouTube vlog as they're like the same thing, which is so confusing. Because there's like one character who's like live streams, we get like transcriptions of throughout the book, but they always get introduced as like, I forgot her name, YouTube vlog. And I was just like, when I was reading the transcripts, I was just like, why wasn't this cut out? Why aren't you editing this video? What the hell is wrong with you? And then, you know, we get back into like the like regular perspectives, and they would say it was like, oh, is this character's live stream in which this happened? And I was like, wait, that was supposed to be a live stream? Why didn't you tell me it was a live stream? Because a live stream and a YouTube vlog, 2 very separate entities. Like, very, very, very different. Like, I don't know how you could confuse the 2, but they did. It was so confusing. And then also just like the comments, because we had the transcript of like the live stream, the vlog. Literally, that were like some of the comments. I was like, these are the most cringiest comments I've ever seen. These don't read like actual comments. Are you serious? There were like the gist was there, but just like the way everything was worded and everything, I'm just like, this is not a YouTube comment. Like, what are you talking about? I still absolutely can't fathom how an actual influencer was a part of this book, because there were so many mistakes in it that even I could pick up on it. I'm not an influencer. The next book I read is Shiny Broken Pieces by Sona Charaipotra Dhonielle Clayton, which is the 2nd book in Tiny Potato Things duology, and I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. I didn't like this one as much, mainly because I feel like we were meant, like this book even ignored more of what Bat was doing. I was just like, sympathize with me, I'm a sad person, I've been through shit. Well, she didn't grow. She still absolutely villainized mental health and sexuality. She still used quite a lot of microaggression towards Gigi, which, like, that's not cool. Don't do that. And it was still just like so toxic. Like, low growth, absolutely 0 growth for Beth throughout the series. The only character that's like 0 growth in the series is Beth, which I'm just like, why? I didn't really like the direction Gigi ran on in this book, but I really loved June's storyline because I feel like it was very strong. In this book, she's kind of like more dealing with her eating disorder, but also there's more of a storyline where she's kind of like stuck between the worlds of ballet and like regular stuff, like her mom wants her to be, and she's kind of just like, I like boats, and I don't really know what to do. And I thought that was very interesting. It was just like, I might not be able to like dance like this my entire life, but I don't want a life without dance, so what do I do now? And I thought that was like a very interesting storyline, because I feel like with Beth and Gigi we got like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna make it to the top ballet, I'm that good. Well, June is like, I could make it, but also I could not, I don't know. And she generally just like had to think about like other options and things to do, and I really thought it was so interesting. And then yeah, I didn't like this book as much because, like I said in the first book, I felt like the drama was like very grounded and I could get like the motivation behind every action. This one I didn't. I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? It was not fun. Yeah. There was also another character introduced into this that just felt like very much a cartoonish villain, which I didn't appreciate. Let's move on to the next book I read in December, which is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This was a reread. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of my Christmas Carol. Actually, this is like more stories in it by Charles Dickens, but I don't care. I only have this for Christmas Carol. I like this cover a lot. Maybe one day I will read like the other stories, but right now I'm not interested. A Christmas Carol is one of like my favorite stories of all time. My favorite movie of all time is The Muppet Christmas Carol, which is brilliant. Thank you very much. And this Christmas season, I just wasn't in a Christmas mood at all. I just couldn't get into it. That's due to a lot of different things, not just the state of the world right now, also just school stuff. But on Christmas itself, I was like, I have to get in the Christmas spirit somehow. So I decided to reread this book, and it worked. I love it so much, and I picked up on so many more things than I did when I first read this a couple of years ago. The writing is just so beautiful, and just like there's a couple of quotes in here that just like made me stop and be like, oh my god, that's such a good quote. Like I have a couple marked in here, but there's like one, like 2 or 3 that are just like top notch. Love it. I love this story so much. I think it's just like a great, because eventually yes, it's about like getting the Christmas spirit, but it's also just like about being kind to people and like being more of like a positive person, which I think like we could all learn to do more. To just like be kind and be happy, think more positively. I think it's attributes we all should have in this day and age. Let's be honest. Such a nice read, and I love it so much. And I immediately watched Muppet Christmas Carol after this, and it's not a movie review. But that movie, like just the first time I realized it, I've read this book before. Like the first time I realized it, that like literally, there's sometimes like line per line like actual like copy of this book, but just like went into the script and it's like copy paste done. And that was so shocking. It's so true to the book. So yeah. Then the next book I read is another reread, and that's Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard, which is the second book in the Red Queen series, and I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. Basically, the thing is, I have read book 1 and 2 of the Red Queen series, and then I own 3 and 4. I've owned these for a very long time. I haven't got around to reading them because I didn't remember anything that happened in this book. And then last year, like 2019 last year, I was like, I should reread the first 2 books so I can finally finish the series, and then I reread Red Queen and I didn't reread this. So I decided we're not going into 2021 without having reread this. So I did it, and I don't know, I was a bit disappointed by it. If you don't know, the Red Queen series takes place in like this fantasy world where there's 2 kinds of people. You have people with silver blood who have magical powers, who are kind of like the elite of this world, and then you have people with red blood who don't have any magical powers and are servants. They're very poor, they're not doing well, and we follow Mare Barrow, who was born with red blood, and then one day she gets a chance to be like kind of like a waitress at this big event in the castle amongst all these silvers, and like something happens and she ends up exposing that she has powers which she didn't know before that she had. And a red blood having powers is impossible. So kind of to hide this fact, the royal family take her in, pretend that she was actually born with silver blood, but she was just raised in a red family who adopted her like something. I don't remember the details. And now she's finally found her way back to the palace, and she is set to marry one of the 2 princes. It is, I do have to say that the series is like very cliche YA, so if you don't like those things, like don't read this book. But I really like the first book because they're just like some of my favorite tropes are in that book, honestly, and I think Victoria Aveyard does them really well. So yeah, but then the second book was a little bit disappointing for me because I just felt like not a whole lot happened. I definitely didn't remember like a single word from this book, so thank god I reread it. But not a whole lot happens. There's a lot of like traveling and hiding, and just a little bit boring for me. There's a lot of interesting elements in this book that I just wish they'd expanded a little bit more on, because I feel like that would be way much more interesting than what we got in this book. And also just didn't like Mero in this book. At the beginning she was fine, but like kind of the way she like developed throughout this book, towards the end I was just like, I hate you. I just do. Because she was so hypocritical and not great. And then there are some characters that kind of like call her out on it, and it's just like, dude, you're not nice. Like, what happened to you? And then seeing it in a monologue, she's like, they just don't understand what I'm trying to do. Like, they don't know how difficult it is to be me. I'm just like, sorry, you're not the only person in this world who has troubles. Like, what the fuck? And we're all trying to do the same thing. Just like, shut up. So yeah, I don't like her at the end of this book. But oh well, I am very excited to get on to the third book. I don't know when that's gonna happen because it's a pretty big book. But like I said, there's a lot of interesting elements in this book. I'm kind of excited to see how they like continue on into the next book. There's also the ending of this book was out of the blue, and I wonder what's gonna happen. So yeah, I do kind of wish. I hate it when like in the middle of a series they like switch it from like single perspectives to like multiple perspectives, but I wish it did that. Because I don't know if I can stand being in Mara's head for 2 more books. Then the next book I read is Every Single Lie by Rachel Vincent, which is a gal I got from that gal and gave 4 out of 5 stars to. This book follows our main character whose life hasn't been easy. Her father just died a couple of months ago, and she thinks her boyfriend is cheating on her, and just the town is a little bit like whispery around her and her family. But then on the day she ends up breaking up, like the day after she ends up breaking up with her boyfriend, she finds a bag at school, a gym bag. In that gym bag is a dead baby. And now her life has gotten drastically worse because some clues lead to the fact that this baby could be her ex's, and a lot of people think that she was the one that killed the baby, and she's getting a lot of hate for it online and even in real life. So life sucks. I want to be funny about this book, but I don't think I should because it does deal with some serious subject matter. But I've been funny about all the other books. Well, not funny, but like lighthearted all the other books. Yeah, it's a hard-hitting contemporary with like a mystery element to it as they try to find out who the mother is of the baby, as well as just there was this Twitter account which is kind of like reporting like news coming out about this baby, and that is also like giving out the idea that she is the mother, main character. So it like started to hate and also trying to figure out who that person is behind that. So there's a mystery element to it, but I feel like it's more about a lot of things. Cyberbullying, first of all. And also the main character is learning like new things about her father, that kind of like tainting the view she had of him before he died. And of course also just like figuring out who the mother is also just like a very like sexy, well-loving character. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I wasn't expecting to. And I know it doesn't make sense. I was expecting to enjoy it a little bit, but I didn't expect like the impact it had on me. Like I just flew through this book, absolutely couldn't stop reading. The mystery element ended up being like a bigger part of it than I expected, but still not a huge part. It's not the main part of the book. But it did end up like being more prevalent than I was expecting. The only reason why it's still 5 stars because I didn't like the main character that much. I get so hypocritical. Like the worst thing is that Ella Boyle is like, oh, I'm being a hypocrite, maybe I should stop doing this, and then like she does it again. She's like, could you not? Like, yeah, I just didn't like that. Last book of the month is City of the Plague God by Sarwat Chadda, which is another gal I got from my gal and gave 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't like this book, which I hate. So basically, this book is a Rick Riordan Presents book and is based on Mesopotamian mythology. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I'm so sorry, I forgot what the word looks like. And basically, we follow our main character, Seek, whose brother has also recently passed away, and he and his family kind of have this bodega. I believe it was a bodega. I'm sorry if it's wrong. I'm not debating if it's a bodega, but I think it is. I don't know. One day when he's like cleaning up the store, I'll keep it at a store because I don't remember if bodega is the correct word. I'm sorry. He's cleaning up the store, and it's kind of like these people that come in that kind of like weird looking, and they end up having like a little fight. And he finds out later that those were demons and a god. And the god is the plague god, and he is making people sick. He's spreading the plague. So, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, maybe I don't mind reading a book about a plague and a pandemic, because it's not really pandemic-y. So it's like very different from how we're experiencing this. So yeah, but like still a decision you gotta make now. But yeah, when this began, I had like so much hope. I was like, yes, this sounds like fun, let's do this. And then it got very, very messy, and I didn't like it. The biggest pro I can give this book is that Zeke is an amazing main character. He's like so clever, and he's so funny and witty, and he knows how to like respond to things, and it's great. Loved it. And I also feel like he had great dynamics with like other characters as well. So that was fantastic. Character work, fantastic. There was like some characters in it that was supposed to like that I didn't, but I just like perfect. But I didn't like hate anyone, which is good. And just like Zeke carried it for me. I feel like if Zeke wasn't a main character in this book, this would be a 1-star. But just the plot just went everywhere a little bit, and also nowhere. There were long moments of time when just like nothing was happening, like nothing of importance at all. You have moments in books where it's like no action is really happening, but like we're building character, or we're building relationships, or like we're learning things about the world, or like something. Nothing. I feel like if you could cut some of these parts out, you wouldn't miss anything at all. So, you know, that's kind of sad. And then like when it came to like actual like plot things, if you like put them all together, I feel like if I would describe all of that to you, you'd be like, oh, that's a summary of a series, right? It happened in multiple books, because it doesn't feel like one flowing story. But it was one book. It was one standalone book. So yeah, I also just didn't really like where the story ended up. I feel like the ending was a little bit convoluted and like very convenient, where like what happened is like things went wrong, but it was like supposed to happen like that, even though like what? I hated it. I also just feel like there were no consequences at all to what happened. Like I said, the ending is based on like, oh, I accidentally did something wrong, but ended up being the right thing. So, you know, that sets a precedent for the rest of the book as well. Well, not really a precedent because it's the ending, but like it gives you an idea of how the book runs. Right? It's just like, I don't care if you make mistakes, because it's gonna end up how it's supposed to. That's it for all the books out in December. It's a long video. I've missed the longer wrap-ups. I've been doing like my own wrap-ups in the middle of the month, and I shouldn't. So my wrap-ups have been like teeny tiny. That was longer again. Appreciate it. Still not too long for me to be like, ah, but it's like a more decent length. This feels like an actual wrap-up. I appreciate it. So yeah, that was my wrap-up for December. Let me know below if you've read any of these books, what you tell them, as well as some books you read in December. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?